We're talking food there and food production. Our next conversation is along the same lines, actually. Research last week by the American Medical Association suggested that eating whole, or so-called real food, and cutting down on sugar is actually a much better approach to losing weight than any kind of low-fat, low-carb or calorie-counting diet. The same week, though, last week, Weight Watchers promoted a global initiative where teenagers between 13 and 17 will be eligible to sign up for a scheme that's free, a free Weight Watchers scheme for teenagers. Weight Watchers, of course, rewards its clients who cut down on their calorie intake. In the papers today, here's the Mail's version: Generation Chubby. Millennials warned they'll be the fattest on record. This is reporting research from Cancer Research UK, which said that 7 in 10 adults born between the early 80s and the mid-1990s will be overweight or obese before they get to middle age. That does sound terrifying, frankly. Let's talk then about the best way to tackle, particularly in this instance, teenage obesity or overweightness in teenagers. Pamani Adab is Professor of Public Health at the University of Birmingham. Welcome to the programme. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Zoe Harcombe is a researcher in the field of diet and health. She's in our studio in Bristol. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, Jane.
And with me in London is Steph Yaboa, who is a plus-size blogger. Steph, welcome to the programme to you too.
Good morning.
Pamani, can we start with the headlines today? We're in trouble here, aren't we? I mean, these headlines really are frightening.
It does make us think. Definitely there is an increasing trend in obesity. We know that it starts at a very young age. So even in primary school, we know that at the age of 4 and 5, when children start school, around a quarter of them are already overweight or obese, and the rate of obesity in particular doubles during the primary school years. And then as children hit teenage years, there's additional pressures that increase their risk. So they suddenly have the restrictions on choice taken away from them. So that in school there's some restriction, but they suddenly have an ability to choose what they eat. There's more of their own choices being made in how they get to and from school and being able to stop. So all the environments around us that promote snacking and unhealthy food choices increase those risks.
Right, and of course there's a big industry based entirely around snacking. There's also a big industry based entirely around dieting. And one of the reasons that organisations like Weight Watchers are worth so much money and make so much money is that people don't succeed and they keep going back. So calorie counting lies at the heart of their approach to weight loss. Should it ever be recommended? What do you think? Does it work?
I think calories are part of the equation, but there is increasing emphasis that focusing on health and whole foods is an important approach. So we know, as you rightly pointed out, the recent study from the review of studies in America does show that focusing on healthy eating rather than restricting seems to have just as much effect. So if we eat more vegetables, less processed, less refined foods, we're full for longer, and that has a result of reducing the calories. It's a sort of byproduct rather than the focus of it.
Steph, you understand all that, don't you? It's not as if that's come as a surprise to you, any of that.
No, not at all. I think I've always sort of championed the idea of promoting healthy eating. I think it's important for children to be taught how to eat the right foods, a variety of different healthy foods in a safe and healthy way. But I think when it comes to things such as Weight Watchers, that tend to champion the restriction of foods and rewarding members of the team. But when they restrict their foods is when I kind of feel it's quite problematic, I suppose. I think especially with them making the membership free for young kids is something that I really don't recommend at all.
Well, I believe you actually went yourself as a teenager, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So when I was younger, when I was 16, I was heavily encouraged to join Weight Watchers because I was overweight. And what I found for me was not so much the yes, the calorie counting was very restrictive, and it actually taught me really negative ways of looking at food. So I began to become very obsessed with calorie counting. I would do things where I would stop eating for a while because I wanted to reach my weekly limit or weekly Weight Watchers points. And because of that, I did develop quite a negative way at looking at food. So it began, I started drinking soups more often. I would do...
To be really blunt, did you lose weight?
I lost weight in the first maybe month or two, and then it all just came back on again.
Right. We've got a statement here from Weight Watchers International. Our goal is to help those who need healthy habits to develop them at this critical life stage. This is not about dieting. People will find that a little bit hard to take. Anyway, that's the statement. It goes on. This summer, teens will be able to join Weight Watchers for free and can continue their membership through to the age of 17. They'll be required to go to one of our locations for their parent guardian to provide consent, as we know that a family-based approach is critical at this stage. So that's what Weight Watchers say. Zoe, what are your thoughts on that?
Calorie counting doesn't work. We have evidence since 1917 that it doesn't work. So the first experiment was actually done over 100 years ago by a chap called Benedict, who tried to elicit a calorie deficit in a few men, and they regained all the weight at the end of the study and a little bit more. And then Keyes repeated that experiment in the 1950s, the Minnesota starvation experiment. The men lost some weight. By about 6 months, they were starting to regain and a little bit more. So I absolutely support what Steph is saying. The experience with calorie counting tends to be that people lose in the short term, regain, often go past their starting point, start another calorie-controlled diet, regain, and you're in that vicious, obsessed, unhealthy cycle.
Right, but a very lucrative one for the companies involved.
Fabulously lucrative. And the other thing about calorie counting is that people make bad food choices. And I'm delighted that we're able to actually name Weight Watchers this morning, because if you look at Weight Watchers products, I had a competition on my site a while ago saying what's the worst product that you can actually come across in terms of number of ingredients and ingredients that you don't recognise. And it's often the diet products. And in fact, Weight Watchers have the winning product still on my blog because they drive people towards bad food choices, diet drinks, sweets, low-fat, high-sugar processed food. So this worsens health as well as not working for weight.
I think we probably ought to bring in a little bit more from Weight Watchers. They do go on to say, we have and will continue to talk with healthcare professionals about specific criteria and guidelines as we get ready to launch this programme. It is in the summer, I should say. We think there's a real opportunity to make an impact on a problem that is not currently being addressed effectively. Well, it's interesting, Pamani, because there is a real link between the NHS and not just Weight Watchers, but other organisations like Slimming World.
I think you're right that in adults there's much evidence that these commercial organisations are successful in helping adults lose weight and to gain healthy weight.
Well, that wasn't quite what I said, actually. I suppose I'm interested in the fact that the NHS recommends these organisations. Yeah, sends patients to them.
Well, as I say, I think in adults it is an effective means of helping people.
But not long term, apparently.
We don't know at the moment what works long term. So there is still much ongoing research to try and identify the best ways of maintaining healthy weight. I think there's a lot to say about building habits that are healthy eating, around healthy eating rather than weight losing habits. And I think, yes, you're right that the commercial organisations do focus on weight loss and calorie counting to some extent, but I think they do include some psychological elements as well and other things.
Well, let's imagine, I know lots of our listeners, though certainly not all, are parents. Many will have teenagers. If you have a teenager you know is overweight, Zoe, what should you do?
Eat better.
As a family?
I mean, just totally eat better as a family. I mean, I almost get bored with saying eat real food. That needs to be the only message that comes out of Public Health England. Public Health England are also completely wrapped up in this calorie message. They recently had this campaign where they wanted children to be looking at 100 calorie snacks a day. So, of course, the confectionery companies, they work very actively with the fake food industry, Public Health England. Immediately we start getting 100 calorie packets of sweets.
In fact, you're right. I've heard them advertised recently, yeah.
Absolutely. So we need to eat better as a family, learn to cook from scratch, understand what real food is, listen to what Minette was saying about real food and be part of that real food revolution. It doesn't have to be middle class. You know, liver is the healthiest food on the planet. It's probably the cheapest thing you can get from the butcher.
Well, good luck with promoting liver, Zoe. I suspect it will be tough. Steph, what would you say about that?
I completely agree with all the points raised here. I think it's important to teach children from a very young age the importance of eating healthy, sort of a cross range of healthy foods. And like you said, you know, the millennials at the moment are, you know, the most obese, and that derives from things such as fast food shops, the rise of, you know, ready-made meals and fast food shops.
I mean, this stuff is easily accessible and it's tasty, Steph. That's why people like it. Is.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's convenient. It's cheap. It's tasty. And I think, you know, I'm not a parent, so I can't, you know, far be it for me to tell somebody how to raise their kids. But I think, you know, teaching kids healthy eating from almost a loving sort of way. My issue is I don't agree when parents almost shame their kids into losing weight, because that's very counterproductive. So like I said, with me, I went to Weight Watchers. I developed quite a bad eating disorder, but I didn't see it was an eating disorder at the time because I was bigger. A lot of people associate eating disorders with very small people. And because I was bigger, I was actively encouraged to continue that eating disorder. So I just feel like Weight Watchers, Slimming World, things of these nature, it will encourage kids to develop eating disorders, psychological
And it's a lifelong effort then.
And it's lifelong, yes.
Well, I should say, of course, if anybody has anything to add, please do email the programme via the website if you've been through this or you're going through it. Brief word from you, Pimani. You're right there, Professor of Public Health. What do responsible parents do?
I think teenagers have a natural curiosity. It's an opportunity at that time to introduce them to healthy eating and a focus on whole foods. And I think we have an important time point at that when they're making their own choices to help them.
Thank you very much. There are links, I'm told, on the Woman's Hour website, bbc.co.uk/Woman's Hour, but I sense there's plenty more to say on this, so keep your thoughts coming. And Jane says, Weight Watchers isn't perfect, but it does provide a framework for people like me. So there's one listener, at least, who finds Weight Watchers helpful. Plenty to get out there, as I say, so do get involved. Thank you all very much. Good to talk to you.